panel session. I'm supposed to have 3 persons here. Florence Hungbo, is she here? Please, okay, please can you just come over? Then Chebbi, is Chebbi here? Thank you so much. Amos Oyango, do we have Amos Oyango? Okay, thank you, welcome. Then there's this Valentine. Valvita, okay. Valvita, can we have you join the panel? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this panel will be handled by Auntie Lucy. We're waiting for you. She'll be the one in charge.
All right, so we'll be talking to mothers and mothers and mothers. I want to talk to young people, young women, and a young man in our midst. All right, so we'll just take, we have 20 minutes for this session, and I hope that we can keep to time. Approximately, this is 13:26. That's 1:26. We should be off from here by 1:46. So please, each of us have 5 minutes. No, we have, let me say, 4 minutes, so we can have time for questions. So you will quickly just introduce yourself, what you're doing as a young person, and what's your context of youth, peace building, and sustainable development. Yeah, so we start from Valvita.
In a world where we never get to really introduce ourselves, my name is Viban. I'm the founder of I'm Human organization, and we promote inclusive education and sustainable programs for women and young girls. And we're now running a mentorship program for victims of gender-based violence across 3 different countries, including Cameroon, Nigeria, and Kenya. And hopefully this year will be in Zimbabwe.
Go ahead. So what's your context of youth, peace building, and sustainable development?
So in the context of youth, peace building, and sustainable development, I would focus more on the sustainable development elements of things. Why, in terms of what I'm Human has been doing with a mentorship program for vulnerable girls, I'll break it down for a simple context. If I have a 6-year-old girl in a community school, say, let me use Bamenda, where I come from, we've been dealing with a lot of political crisis, in civil instability for a bit now. And what we're trying to do with our program with young girls in those kind of communities is to provide the kind of support that they need to, one, voice out the issues that they're facing in their communities. And the good thing about it is that we're using young people to be part of the training process. So if I was doing a mentorship program for a 6-year-old girl, for instance, in Bamenda, I know for a fact that access to education is an issue for her, gender-based violence is possibly an issue for her. And in such communities, for instance, we have stories like girls who are dropping out of school and are facing some form of violence, but they cannot speak up. So a mentorship program in this case would entail, one, what we love to call it My Voice Matters. My Voice Matters pretty much tells each and every one of these girls in these situations that they can speak up for their rights, they can voice what their issues are, and in return, because we need that data, I will say that one of the things that we're faced as challenges, and I'll just put it out there, is the fact that access to data is so hard. We hear that we're complaining about issues every day. We're talking about the women issues. But when we go out there to look for facts, to come back to the government, to issue policies, for instance, it becomes complex. So if I go and say a 6-year-old girl or 6-year-old Amina is facing, has been raped, they'll be asking me where's proof, where are the police records, where are they found? But that's where the young people like ourselves come in. We come in place with programs and initiatives that allow these girls to actually speak us and give us that information that we can use to lobby and table forth, policies that will help. And one of the things I really loved about one of our sessions with the schools one of the girls in the schools in Mukuru, Kenya, is the second most renowned slum in East Africa, as I hear. And in those schools, for instance, what we're trying to pull out as information is what are the community, let's just say the principals in those institutions, what are they doing to make sure that the voices of these children in crisis are being heard and the human rights violations are being projected forward. And one of the things we tell them is you need to put in place a rigid policy in your school that says zero tolerance for violence against any girl, and you should put in place a punishment just so that even if the government is not supporting you, we as young people can provide a platform for you to actually track, collect, and share this information, and of course, leverage any kind of punishments that will reduce and curb some of those issues that they're facing in crisis moments.
Thank you so much, Velveta. You kept to time, don't worry. All right, so 2 key points there is data, lack of data, and then strategy. So giving us that opportunity. And that takes me to my next question for Amos. So you just quickly introduce yourself and what you're doing in your country, and then you answer this question. How can youth, be part of communal panels, let me put it up, committees, strategy building committees for peace building? Because, one of our speakers yesterday mentioned the fact that mothers and parents have a role to play in ensuring that their children are advised the right ways. And when you go to communities and you have issues of uprising, youth are the people that perpetuate these issues. So, but how do we get a seat on the table to formulate strategies and peace-building initiatives in our communities? Thank you, Amos.
Thank you very much. I hope my feminine voice can be heard. My name is Amos. I'm from Kenya. I run a company called Lawi Africa Technology Limited that deals with making Africa wares and Africa products. What I'm putting on, everything is made from my company. And beside that, I run an organization called Lawi Africa Foundation, and basically it empowers young abused women and men. And so what we do at Lawi is we empower young women and young men. But before going there and before answering a question, I just want to say the reason why I'm here. Out of so many women, when I was at the airport and people were saying, you're going to a women event. And I want to bring to your attention that I want to give you just a short 1 minute story why I love women things. Is because if I made sure that my mother, at the period of 9 months, I made sure that she did not take her best food. I made sure that she did not fit on her best wares. During the birth, I made sure that she danced the Lingala rhythm, trying to let my head outside, biting her teeth bitterly. Now, why am I here again? At the age of 12, I lost my mom as a result of cancer. Then you're a man, you want to tell me that I'm going to a woman event. I think young men outside there need to search their soul. And part of the problem of this continent called Africa, majority of the problem arises from young men. It is young men that are being used to join the Boko Haram. It is young men that are joining terrorists. And it is the same young men, like in Kenya now, my country, my beautiful country, young men. Young men are being used by politicians to take away the neck of a fellow neighbor. So back to your question, which is, what can we do as young people? There is this philosophy that I love about Africa. It's called Ubuntu. A person is a person through other person. The day we will all learn that, I think nobody will hold a panga for somebody. The day we will know that, I think nobody will get out of this room and see a young lady from the rural village in Kaduna, in Kumasi, Ghana, and say that you are doing something good. I work for Development Bank. I'm going to fund your project. That is the day young people will arise. So what do I mean? We need to empower ourselves. Real investment is in empowerment. It is not in handouts. I'm 27 years old. At the age of 27 years old, I had resigned my job from the PLO Lumumba Foundation. And I must acknowledge that he is my mentor, and he mentored me to be somebody. At the age of 25, I opened a company with no money. At the age of 27, I'm running a women organization. I did not go seeking for help in Europe. I used the little resources that I gained from the company to support the young women. And that brings me to what we are doing. Part of the things that we are doing are these. And these are products that are done by women. So we must empower our younger generation. That is the only way to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Amos. I think I will still have to redirect your question to Aya. Now, when I mean strategy, what are the things youth are supposed to do? Lay down strategy as Africans, Nigerian youth, as Uganda youth, as Kenyans, as Zimbabweans. What are we supposed to do as young people? Because if there is no peace, there cannot be sustainable development. So what are the strategies that we're supposed to adopt as African young people?
Thank you so much. Men are good marketers. See how? But thank you for sharing your story. I see you teared there. Hello, everyone. My name is Chebbi. I am a Pan-African with a Tunisian passport. And I served as the first youth envoy of the African Union. And probably in telling my story, I'll tell you how we as young people can engage, because I moved from the activist space, pretty radical, pretty revolutionary. I was part of my country's revolution in 2011. We ousted a dictator. I was protesting. I got arrested, jailed. I went through all of it. And then at that time, I was thinking, that's the only way to make change. You have to make noise. You have to rise up for your rights. But after 5, 6 years, I realized if we as young people don't go into the system and keep shouting outside of the system, how is the system supposed to change? How are these institutions supposed to institutionalize, to digitalize? And that's why I went into the African Union, the belly of the beast. It's not only one government, it's 55 governments. So there are two things I think I want to add to the conversation. There was a really interesting conversation this morning about politics. One is intergenerational. And I want to, it's unfortunate that many of our elders here have left, because I think the youth panel is really important because it's an intergenerational conversation. Most of the time we don't sit together as generations and actually have hard, honest conversations. And I want to first acknowledge our women elders, our mothers. We stand on your shoulders. We are the continuation of your struggle. And that's why we need each other, because we need you to tell us how you've done it when you succeeded and where you failed so we don't do it. And you need us. You need us to continue your fight. If there is no generation that you're breeding to stand up and continue the fight. So when I went into the African Union with this, activist voice that I want to get all of the men out of the system because they're old men leading, I changed my strategy. I surrounded myself by elder women, and they become my allies. Because if we like it or not, being a young female in leadership is double crime. If you're an elder woman in leadership, you're respected. If you're a young female leader, you're not taken seriously, no matter how high your leadership position. I had elder women like Mama Amina Mohammed, step down off the stage and give me her seat. I had Dr. Vera of Economic Commission of Africa, take off her placard and say, this is the youth representative, have to take the seat. I had meetings, bilateral meetings with presidents where protocol closed the door and elder women would come out and say, this is the envoy, she has to be there. So I started to call for what I call it intergenerational co-leadership. It's not a dichotomy. It's not about us versus them. It's how do we lead together. And the reality in Africa, we are the youngest population in the world, 65% under 30. And we have the average age of African leaders 64. And the average age of the population at almost 20. So we have 40 years of generation gap. That's a generation gap of understanding the problem and of finding the solution. And I started to go to heads of states and tell them, let's have a youth advisor in your cabinet. Let's have 30%, 50% of youth in parliament. Let's have a youth program in public service. And in Rwanda, they have the biggest youth program in public service. We have to co-lead. We cannot inherit institutions we didn't co-design. You're setting up to failure if we do that. If you bring a young person right now who has no whatsoever background in our historic, evolvement of our institution, how can they do it without capacity? So for me, it's really intergenerational solidarity and collaboration. And in the women's space, I learned a lot. It's the sisterhood. And it's supporting each other and having that safe space. The second thing is Pan-Africanism. There is no feminism without Pan-Africanism. And when I say feminism, I don't mean I hate men and I shave my head. I mean that I want women liberation. I know feminism, the word can be very intimidating. But feminism for me is that every day I want to be free and become as a woman. And I stand up for other women. So Pan-Africanism, I was fascinated by the 60s and 50s and how without WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter, they managed to liberate the continent from colonialism. In 1 year, in 1960, 10 African countries got independence. And that's only because of Pan-Africanism. That's because my liberation is your liberation. And it is anti-Pan-African to reduce women to maternal functions. It is anti-Pan-African to, objectify women. We learned it from the Pan-African movement. But we lack Pan-Africanism in our intergenerational women movement. I heard Her Excellency say that you can't import a policy from Kenya to Nigeria. That's true, you need context. But ending a child marriage policy somewhere on the continent can inspire change in others. Even in my country, when we started change and social movements, it inspired other countries to do that. So we are one continent, we have one destiny, we have similar structures, and we have to fight it together. There is no other way. In the intergenerational aspect, there is the political, so intergenerational co-leadership, and there is the personal. And I think that's what we're missing here. We're not having intergenerational personal conversations. And I had two conversations with my mother and my father. My father, my breakthrough with him was, I was part of the revolution. He was in the military. I didn't tell him I was on the street protesting. I didn't see him for 10 months. He was on the border when Libya revolution started. He just saw me on the news. He's like, what the hell you're doing? And we met after 10 months, we had a conversation, and he said, your generation did it. You freed the country from 23 years dictatorship. And that was an intergenerational, honest conversation that we did our part, but we let you down in some parts, and we failed you. the intergenerational conversation I had with my mom is convincing her after 10 years that marriage is not my achievement. Marriage is, even my therapist, and I do have a therapist, I'm not ashamed of it, and I ask for help while I need it. She's an elder woman, and one time when we talked about marriage and I said, I don't believe in marriage project, she said, maybe reconsider that. And I'm like, did my mom call you? Because I'm supposed to talk to my therapist. But surviving abuse is an achievement. Waking up every morning in a good mood is an achievement. Having a full scholarship on my own to finish my master's degree in London is an achievement. Being the first ever youth envoy, youngest diplomat of the African Union is my achievement. Not faking an orgasm is an achievement. Not marriage, it's the idea of marriage from both the girls and the mothers. That is the achievement for them. I'm rounding up. But not marriage itself. I think we just let women be. Let them be their bad-ass three-dimensional selves. If she wants to get married, let her be. If she wants to be a single mother, let her be. If she doesn't believe in marriage project, let her be. If you want to shave, if you want to do curly hair, whatever you want, just let her be free to exist in this world. And that's what I fight for. I don't fight for gender equality or to be equal to men. I want equal opportunities, but not to be equal to men. I want to disrupt the whole male system. But I want to fight for freedom and for liberation.
Thank you, please. Thank you so much. So 2 key points. We have to co-lead and we have to lean on the shoulders of our mothers and people that have gone ahead of us. Okay, Florence. So I want to bring us to 2, I think just one instance because of our time. Last week or so, if I'm not too sure, there was a murder in Sokoto. A young female student was murdered. Was killed. That's the right word. Was killed out of religious bias. That she spoke against, a religion and stuff. And she was killed by young people. Same young people, not older generation. Florence, this takes me to you. What's your message for young people to stay united, to stay one, and to speak the same language?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Florence Hungbo from Badagry, Lagos State in Nigeria. I'm actually the founder of Bewi Africa, Bodex Exceptional Women Initiative. It is an initiative we created to empower women in males-dominated field because I'm actually one of the top cobblers in Nigeria. I make shoes. So I just felt, since people have this mentality of what men can do, we can do it. So I decided to actually go into that field, and it has been very successful. So we decided to come up with an initiative that we will use to also support other women. And also, we can also use it to bring peace, so we can collaborate and partner with men that actually know how to do this footwear more than us. Then I'm also the convener for Bodex Social Media Hangouts. It's also an initiative that we set up because I'm also a PR consultant. Due to my media strength back in Nigeria, we decided to come up with this initiative that brings all the social media influencers, media personalities, houses, PR consultants, stakeholders like yourself who come to advertise with us, and then the fans who are the commenters. It's a platform that brings all of us together to coexist, have fun, and then talk about the things that we post that the stakeholders don't like, and then how stakeholders also expose themselves for us to be able to carry that news. Then we come together to just make peace. So you can see that we are already impacting already when it comes to peace because we just want peace. And do not forget that social media is now one of the most violent platforms now in the whole world. We no longer do one-on-one again. Just do anything to me and I will just go on social media. So we created that platform so that like a regulatory body where we'll be able to caution people on what to put on social media and what not to put on social media. Now back to my take on how we should use ourselves to, to build peace. I think we will make it one mistake, which is we are not paying attention to the real definition of peace. People have different definition, but I think peace is when I am free to do what I want to do and I sleep well, I wake up well, without thinking that I have one village person that wants to come disturb me, or I've offended somebody that wants to come take revenge. I'm sure, okay, Your Excellency, my governor's wife from Bauchi, I want to quickly ask a question. I'm sure when you have a dispute with His Excellency, do you sleep well at night? You don't, right? Okay, because you always want to think about it. So peace is actually something that we all have in us. All we need to do is for us to activate it. You might not know how to activate it. You can speak to people who actually know how to do all that, and they will be able to bring it out for you to be able to exhibit it. Then do not forget that what you do not have, you cannot give it. So if you don't have peace, there's no way you want to join a community to be able to talk about peace. It is not possible. So when I have peace and you have, collectively, then we can start talking about it and see how we can extend it. Then now, I think we also need to pay more attention to grassroots. The way we were brought up is actually different from what is going on now in the whole world. When we were growing up, if Her Excellency uses a sign language, I'll be able to understand. The people that we have now, they actually do not. Even when you're trying to tell someone that do not start any fight, they just want to start the fight. So now that takes me to we letting our youth, ourselves, know the, should I call it, the negative things that come, or the circumstances around you not choosing peace. Because when you are at peace, everything actually goes well for you, whether you like it or not. But when you know that, for instance, the mother that you just talked about, if they had actually, thought about the aftermath of that act, I'm sure they wouldn't have done it. Why would they want to beat anybody and then burn the person? It shows that they don't even have conscience. Because if you have conscience and you have the fear of God and you want peace to reign, you won't even go that route at all. You will just do what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to say thank you to our mothers who have been the responsible mothers, who have been able to actually instill this virtue in us while we were growing up. So we need to also work on our grassroots by letting them know that when you join a particular gang that has to do with negative things, being thugs, or you know how to do a start fight or do whatever you want to do, this is the outcome. You might not want to go that route again. You'll be like, oh, I would like my fellow person to be at peace. Why do I want to start a fight? Why do I want to create a dispute that we extend and want to start keeping malice, and that community cannot, cross over to this community because of that act? So please, we all need to understand the real definition of peace so that we'll be able, to pass the message and then go everywhere we need to go to with peace of mind. So please, let us start from grassroots. Let us create as many groups as possible. Now, all through today, we'll be talking about politics. Do not forget that whoever I am, that is also what I'll do when I have a political position. If I'm unable to even manage my staff, maybe like 2 staff in my own company, how am I going to lead people? So we should also be able to lead our businesses well, our families well, our friends well, so that when you have another position, like a political position, what you need to do is for you to get strategists that will be able to work on your existing strategy for you to be able to now lead people. It's not really, you can't just jump. People don't like processes. That was why I love the lady that is trying to get fund, to sponsor female politicians. If you don't have anything you want to give, there is no point going there. And this is why they've been taking us for granted. Because you keep saying, I'm a woman, I'm a woman. I'm also a woman. I'm a cobbler. I make shoes for ministers, for senators. I didn't go about telling people that, oh, sorry, because I'm a woman, please come and buy the shoe. No, I can make like 10. Then I'll go, Your Excellency, please. I've made 10 for you. You can pay for 9, but I will dash you 1. Support my business. You need to have something that you can actually show to people. You need to be a woman of substance. And when you're such a woman, you also have peace. When they call you for something, you'll be able to do it without looking for pity or looking for somebody to say, oh, because you're a woman, you should. No. What is good for goose is also good for gander. And do not forget, when a woman is pregnant, the first thing that comes into everybody's mind is, this person is pregnant with human being. It's after scan or after giving birth, that's when you'll be able to say, oh, it's a female gender or it's a male gender. So let us work on the humanity part of our lives first before you seek a higher position, for you to be able to at least take that message that you want to work with. So please, let us go back home. Let us do our assignment. Create peace among ourselves, among our family members, at workplace, so that when we get to that place that you are actually supposed to talk about it, it will be so easy for you to pass the message.
Please, thank you so much, Florence. Thank you so much. Please, do we have questions to wrap up this panel? Please, if you have a question, please kindly raise your hand. When we count, we might not be able to take more. So please, when we give numbers, we will not take more, please. 1, 2. Is that a hand? Please, just raise very well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, that's it. 5. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, my name is Linda.
Please,
from
1 minute.
Yes. Please, my question goes to the first speaker. I'm sure she says she owns an NGO that deals with domestic violence, especially for younger people. I want to ask if you have any provision for women or older women that was violated maybe 20 years ago and now want to talk, because I also ran an NGO that was also basing mostly on younger girls, but we've come to realize that just this April, we realized that one political known person was violated when she was 17 and she couldn't speak until now. And she is afraid that if she talks now, and in Ghana, they will tell you to come with evidence. So how do we deal with situations like that? And also, please, on young leaders, how do we curtail younger people also using other younger people for their own benefit and not for the benefit of the general good? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, let's keep our question to 1 minute. Our food is getting cold and the hotel have already sent.
Thank you so much. My name is Okemere Tukwa. I'm from Africa Independent Television, Nigeria. I'll try to be as brief as I can. So my question here goes to the fact that yesterday we had some issues with the virtual lady. We couldn't hear her, even though her mic was on. So my question is, how do we put on the mic for the youth? As a communicator, dissemination is when information is passed across and received. Now, when you have a message on your phone and you don't open it and you read it, it is still received. So how do we ensure that youths actually get a listening ear? Because if that does not happen, then whatever strategy we come out here with is probably useless. On the 20th of October in my country, the youths participated in what we call the Lekki Massacre. They were in massive numbers, but yet they were still belittled. So how do we go past that drop and have an ocean? Really quickly again, I'd like to say, how do we connect the nexus between the generations? once a young person speaks or looks a certain way, has a certain hair color, the generations just write them off. They have nothing to say. I'm here representing the chairman of the African Independent Television, the first foremost African television. And a lot of people, no names mentioned, feel I'm too young to be doing that. This is just one out of the many issues that youths face. For us to be able to give our insights on peace, we need to be listened to. So what can we do to have a state of emergency for youth voices to actually be heard? Thanks.
Thank you. Please, the next. Can we take the two responses so we don't forget the questions? Just 1 minute. Please, can we respond?
So to your question about the elderly woman who has come through now, one thing I like to say is, you know, violence pretty much it stems from a lot of things in our communities, and silence in itself is violence. So if I tell you today that in this room as we're sitting here, it doesn't take the lady who has reached a political position to start talking. We in ourselves look around each other, have seen, witnessed, have probably participated, supported, heard, and not said anything. So in terms of how we can contribute, I think beyond just the victim speaking forth, and I know I have a couple of Cameroonians here who are pro gender-based violence activists, as in they cannot blink without speaking about GBV. But one of the things that we've realized in terms of supporting the voices of younger people, and one of the reasons why our mentorship program starts from as young as 6-year-old, is because when we reach a certain level, the violence changes. It's just like a cycle. It changes how it affects your community. And now you don't want to go out in public and talk to a man because you're feeling like you can almost see your rapist in front of you. So pretty much how you don't have a voice, and that's how the voices are shone from a smaller level. And before you get to being, an AU envoy, you're pretty much feeling like, I don't have a voice. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to reverse the cycle and start the conversations as early as we can, so that even if you cannot speak for yourself, those who are around you can speak for themselves. And that's why our movement is called My Voice Matters. We personalize it. So my voice might be just speaking up for somebody else. And I really want to entreat each one of us here in the room, is we know the violent offenders. We see them every day. We see them, even if it's just a text message. And somebody mentioned about, the role of media. The media in itself has contributed. There's a lot of digital violence. There is a lot. It's a new sphere. Like, we're discovering that there's violence digitally, and we're like, what do we do with this? Somebody posts a picture and we have the most obscene comments coming online. And then this is how these voices are eventually being shot. But if we're not talking about them and putting in place, support systems that eventually help these people, it becomes really challenging. And I want us to take that back as we're living here, is in the different spheres in which we're working in. How are we putting in place systems that are responding to issues as early as we can?
Thank you, Velveta. Please, panelists, can you respond? I've just gotten a notice that the hotel needs us in 10 minutes, and they will shut down their restaurant by 3, so we'll not be able to access food for lunch. Please, just bear with us. Please, just quickly respond to...
2 questions. One on how do we make our voices heard? Come together, because we're louder if we're together. Why do we compete for funding in NGO space? Why do we compete for titles in the UN, to be advocate, to be this, to be that? That's actually undermining our voices because we're scattered. So if we want our voices heard, we have to learn how to work together. It's hard because we have different ideologies, different views. Something I try to do is to build an Nala feminist collective. We're 17 women, youngest ministers on the continent, the youngest parliamentarians, doing amazing things in their own rights, having large following. But together, we managed to shift the agenda in the UN. So how to make your voice heard? Find another sister and come together. The second one on intergenerational conversation, what was the question on? Yes. The elders that you meet who don't necessarily agree with you or who judge you for who you are as a young woman. I think from my experience, I try to find first elder women who are champions of the youth agenda. The likes of Mama Gracia Machel and Dr. Ngozi, and the list goes on. I think many of them are outside in the portraits. And then, because there is a language barrier, some of the conversations we will have with elders and we will not agree on anything. But some of the conversations, if we have allies and they talk to their fellow elders, we might have an entry point. Because we need it anyway. We need to make every space intergenerational. We don't have a choice. We cannot make it as young people in the system if we don't have intergenerational support. There is no way. You will be faced with misogyny, with patriarchy, with all sorts of things, and without the support of elder women in your way, and also elder men who are champions of women, you can't make it. So youth spaces and only, policymaker spaces, let's get rid of that. And let's always have intergenerational spaces. And maybe if this is my last word, my appeal, not to young people here, because all the young women I heard are, amazing. I don't have any message for you, just keep going, because I'm inspired by many of you. But my appeal is to our mothers here. You are leaving us in a very violent world. We appreciate and we recognize the sacrifices you made and where you arrived today and the path you opened for us. But you're leaving us with a very violent world where it's okay to marry at 12, where it's okay to kidnap a girl from school, where it's okay to drop out of school because of your period, where it's okay to cut the clitoris, where it's okay for the rapist to escape law to marry the victim. It's a violent world we live in. You forged your own path. You cracked your own glass ceilings. Help us to do the same. Support us and stand by us. We don't want you behind us. We don't want you behind us. We want you next to us, by us. That's how we're gonna, with your wisdom and our innovation, that's how we're gonna take the continent to where she deserves to be.
Thank you. All right, question number 3. Please, can you make it just directly to the question? Don't give explanation. Thank you.
My name is Joyce.
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to say thank you to Aya for all that she's been saying. It's on point. To a point, you asked the youth seated, how do the youth get a seat on the table? I think that question should have been placed to the women in this room. How are they preparing seat for the youth to take after them? Because they are the ones who are already in the leadership roles. We are growing, we're learning from them. So I think that question should have been placed to all of the powerful women in here about what are they doing to prepare a seat for the younger generation. And the question is, but this question was placed to the youth. And another thing, the women in here keep talking about the problems about politics and everything. I think the problem we are having is that they are only focusing on themselves and forgetting about the next generation. Take, for example, we have an African proverb that says, you cannot bend an old tree. I think the reason they are having problems is because they are already elderly and they are trying to get into these positions, so it takes them time to get along with it. The problem is they need to start training the younger generation for these political positions so as to not have problems in the next generation when it comes to placing people in different political seats. So my question to you women, are you mentoring young women in your positions presently? I think next time we have an African forum like this, you should come along with your mentees so you show us that I'm mentoring this person and I'm sure they're learning from me. So the next time when I leave and I'm older, I trust that she can take a seat after me. That way women empowerment and equality and every other thing will go smoothly because then women are ensured and they are assured that there are people to take after them. It wasn't a question.
I love you. Thank you so much. So, sorry, ma'am, I'd already counted 5, please. We're going to the 4th person.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick one for Ms. Chebbi. So it's just an advice. Like, what advice will you give to youths who are struggling to be agents of peace in a highly marginalized society where every youth who wants to practice the co-leadership you spoke about, or who wants their voice to be heard, gets arrested, or even in legal practice, you know, we get, it's a situation where lawyers get detained for trying to work with detainees, being a youth. I think Velveeta can give an example. I follow her very closely on social media. She had a program on the national TV where she had to speak something concerning I Am Human Foundation, and she had just come back from other countries. They celebrated her. But on our own national TV, she was not given the chance to speak. So how do we encourage youths in this kind of scenario?
So who do you want to respond to that question?
Miss Aya Chebbi.
Aya, 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Very hard, but I love the mentorship. I think we should match here our mentees and mentors already.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something concrete to get out with. But I think two things I've done in my life when I was in the streets protesting is meditate. I think you need to find your mental health tools, whether that's meditation, that's your faith, your prayer, to dance, to create music, whatever it is. To be sane in the world of activism, you need some tools. The second thing is to be in the space of change making. You need to believe that your power is your radical self. So find it. And every time you're doubting yourself or you're put down or you think, what am I doing? Or you're questioning your why, ask yourself again, where is my power? And for me, I found power in my voice. I started as a blogger. I changed the narrative in my country about social movements. And then I traveled the continent, I started changing that. But it started first from me, finding my identity, my mission, and believing my radical self everywhere. Even when I became diplomat, it doesn't take out from my activist voice. I stand up in front of heads of state and I tell them when they violate human rights. I was an envoy when Shut It All Down happened in Namibia and when the movement happened in Nigeria.
And SARS.
And SARS. And I stood up in the human rights meeting chaired by Botswana president, and I'm like, why are we killing our young people? Why are we violating our young people? They are our innovation, they are our force, they are everything. They are the only hope of this continent, from corruption to unemployment to everything else. Yeah. So I think that's wherever you are, the avenue of the space you lead in, it's not the title. Everything is a vehicle for you to do your mission. But whatever you are, just be grounded in that mission and that value. Don't ever let your voice be compromised.
Thank you, Aya. This is the last question. So, young people are the innovation. Last question. Thank you,
Thank
John.
you very much.
I'm sure it's a comment.
No, it's actually a question. Yeah, thank you very much. Aya, I'm going to go to you. Profound words today. I like when a woman comes with history, intelligence, and also being very concise as well. The youth generation, there's a whole lot we're doing. I think there's money for collaboration. So based on your experience as a youth envoy, how are you passing on the information in terms of the digital revolution? How are you harnessing it? There's a lot of spaceless collaboration at the moment, and digital media is one way that we get information. So a lot of you know about your work, at the African Union they know about your work, but how many people across other countries know that there's an Aya, or there was an Aya at the African Union that was representing us, and how were you able to share that? The second thing is, how do we also encourage peer-to-peer and mentorship amongst the youth generation as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Joma. That's very timely.
I hope I got the question right because I wasn't hearing very well. During my term, well, first COVID happened, but before COVID, I was going around the continent organizing intergenerational dialogues. And I managed, even with COVID, to organize 100 intergenerational dialogues with young people. So for me, it's not, I seated in a position where I can amplify youth voices. So the work that has to be done to build an office in the African Union or any institution that cares about youth and do something concrete for youth is by working with young people. That's my constituency. I go back to my constituency and we organize on the ground. Organizing. There is nothing to luck. We have to plan and organize. How do we pass the information? I did a lot of offline stuff because we have to recognize 70% of Africa is offline. You know, the people who are in the online space is the most privileged people. And that's why, actually, when you have 90% online in the US, whatever becomes viral there becomes viral in Africa. Because we don't have a constituency online to change the narrative drastically. And with the few we have, we're doing great. But imagine if 90% of Africa is online. Imagine that kind of power we have. But with that, we have a lot of superpowers. We have the demographic power. We have that, you know, digital power that is still unequal. We have the voting power. We can vote anyone in and anyone out if we come together as young people. If we actually have a political party on the continent, we'll be the largest. So I think we just don't realize our power. And when I go and talk about what we do at the African Union, I don't talk about policies and frameworks. I talk about our power. What can we do? And whatever implementation of those frameworks on the ground, it will never happen without the youth on the ground, and it will never happen without organizing. On the mentorship, I do mentor at least 10 young people, younger, like 15 to 25. I think everyone should commit to mentor. And mentorship is both sides. Everyone have something to offer the other. So even if with the elders, you mentor us, but we also mentor you. We have new ideas, we have new vision, we have new drive. We give you the energy, and you give us the energy. You know, when I see President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf at 92, still chairs meeting of 3 hours. I was with her on a panel of meeting with 3 hours. I'm like, when I feel like I can't wake up in the morning, I'm like, no, Aya, you have to wake up, because these women are still pushing. We have a long way to go to push.
Thank you so much. Please put your hands together for this panelist. Very intelligent, smart panelist. Thank you so much. We just have to go, Amos.
Okay, just add one thing to add.
1 minute.
Yes. No, thank you so much, my sister. One of the things that I want to add in a point of how does youth communicate? How do we get to share what we are doing? One of the reasons why Africa is not having good storytellers is we are not documenting our stories. Let's learn to document our stories, be it on social media, be it on a book form, be it on a video form, because you don't know the life that you're going to impact outside there. And that's why each and every story I document. This was my story. I have authored 4 books. And now I'm writing about women and I'm a man. So document information so that you can inspire other generation. Even when you're gone, they are able to be somebody.
Thank you, Amos. Young people are the innovation that Africa needs. Please put your hands together for this panelist. Let's take a picture and we're done. Photo.